Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from sortofinteresting.com and you're joining me today back in my old bedroom at my mum's house in front of the good old bookcase full of all sorts of books. And today we're going to have another random book recommendation, and this one is from far more of a mainstream author than some of the recommendations I have and will be giving over the course of these videos, but it's also one of the lesser known, lesser read books. The author is J.R.R. Tolkien, who I'm sure many of you are more than familiar with after the last decade of films. But the book, and this is one of my all-time favourite books, this is easily top 5, top 3 at various points. Basically, it's a battle between this and Alice in Wonderland is my favourite book ever, very often. But that book is The Silmarillion. Now, The Silmarillion is basically, and I've talked about this before in these videos, but I wanted to do it properly as part of this proper review series that I'm doing. Basically, the Silmarillion is almost like the Old Testament of the Tolkien world and of the Middle-earth sort of universe, I suppose. And basically, it literally starts off with little short stories that talk about before there was anything at all. Like, literally, it's the creation story, and we're talking the creation of everything. And, like, Middle-earth is only a tiny little part of this much bigger world. And for those who are familiar, I hope this isn't spoilers after however many decades the books have been out and the films and all that, but you may notice, may know that various characters leave Middle-earth to go into just the West, and a lot of this is explaining what is in the West, and there's so many things in this book. So, I mean, I suppose we'll start at the beginning, which is the creation story, and like it talks about how all of the world and everything was sort of sung into creation, I suppose, sung into existence, and all of these, for argument's sake, we're going to call them gods and lesser gods, I suppose. But everybody, like one Iluvatar, the one sort of overall god, gave each of these other people in the like sort of angelic choir just their little part of the music, not knowing the overall tune. So each one of these would sing their little bit, and then all together as they sung, it created the song, and then he showed them that they'd sung stuff into being, and so that explains as well why, after the world is actually created and all the rest of it, because these different gods and different figures like that knew only their part of the song, they sort of know some of the future, but they don't know all of the future. And I mean, if this is already starting to sound a little bit out there, then it's not really that sort of massively high concept book, although at the same time it exactly is. It does actually get more into a story, and almost it's like the history of the entire Tolkien universe told from thousands and thousands and thousands of years before Lord of the Rings, and explaining and putting everything into context from things like Sauron and the forging of the rings, all that sort of stuff. And literally, like I say, going from before anything even exists, basically, and it all starts even at that point, and eventually leads into the Lord of the Rings main story and stuff like that. And like I say, this is it's just awesome. I can't tell you how much I love it. But at the same time, it is quite heavy going. It's not the easiest book to read, I'll say that. You could easily, I think, sit down and read, and if you're not really paying attention, further down the book, start thinking, oh, hang on, who was that? What was that? I would say if you can pick this up cheap as an audiobook, then definitely go for the audio version. I mean, I've read this a couple of times and had, well, in fact, you'll see that these audiobooks I've got here, these are old cassette audiobooks, and those 5 are the 5 parts of the Silmarillion as read on 2 cassettes per part. So, like I say, I do love this, and even just here we've got The Hobbit as cassette audiobook, and then the Silmarillion as an audiobook. So that's my sort of, that's when I say that I love this book. I've even got it on cassette, and you can't say that about many things these days. So, really, I suppose that for me, I love the whole concept of like the beginning of the world, and then like the gods coming down and shaping everything, and there's already like baddies at that stage, and again that's how it sort of runs this theme of like good and evil, and there's so many characters that are known in later books like Lord of the Rings and so on that pop up literally thousands of years before the events that you previously know them from the popular things like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and that sort of stuff. I think ultimately though, what I think, even though I love the beginning of the earth and all that story, it's that massive amount of context and literally fleshing out the world of Tolkien and Middle Earth with the entire rest of the world and what's beyond the world and what's in, I don't know if you would call it space or what's before the world, I suppose, technically. Putting all of these characters and all of the events that stretch through this unbelievable history and timeline into, like, again, it talks about things like the Aes Atari, like Gandalf and Saruman and the wizards and stuff like that. And Radagast the Brown as well. Not a relation of mine, I'm afraid. But really, it's all of these different characters who get just these tiny little mentions and just the most brief thing. But it shows that, because this was edited by Christopher Tolkien, Tolkien's son, it basically puts into context so much of Lord of the Rings and so much of how the world over all this time steadily sort of got into the shape that it was. And as I say, there's so much to be said on this topic, and there's so much to say about this book, and as you've probably gathered from this video and the overexcited manner of the recording, that I do absolutely love it. So I think I'll wrap things up there and say, the Silmarillion, check it out if you get the chance. Until the next time though, feel free to check out my own short Kindle books about boat life and that sort of stuff. You'll find links to those in the description below. Feel free also, if you want to hear it as an audiobook, to check out The Narrowboat Lad, my first and currently only ever audiobook that I've released. You might even get it free from Audible, but I'll leave links to that on Audible and iTunes in the description below too, as well as a link to this on Amazon. But until the next time, have an absolutely fantastic day. Keep it book-worthy, keep it boat-worthy, and of course, farewell.